Good evening. This is the August 11th, 2020 meeting of the Stevens Estate Long-Term Advisory Committee. Time is 5 p.m. and I will read the governor's preamble to begin the meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Stevens Estate Long-Term Advisory Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 99 or Verizon Channel 28 or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in public hearings, please email your question/comment prior to or during the meeting to ashapiro@northandoverma.gov. That's ashapiro@northandoverma.gov. The question/comment will be read during the proceedings and responded to accordingly. The first item of business on our agenda is a call to order, and that will be done by roll call to confirm a quorum. So if you are present, please answer by saying here. Kevin Driscoll?
Here.
CJ Ganji?
Here.
Jen Luz is absent, I believe. Jack Mabin?
Here.
Joe Pellich?
Here.
Kathleen Stagno?
Here.
And Jim LaFond is also present. And also present is Andrew Shapiro, Director of Economic Development. So we actually have a quorum of 6, so the meeting is hereby called to order. The second item on the agenda is to select a voluntary recording secretary. Any volunteers out there tonight? Anybody who hasn't done it, just longing to do it?
Jim, again, we're on the home stretch, so I'll take care of it again. That's not a problem.
Andrew, you're taking everybody off the chopping block here.
I know. We just want to get this done. So
that's right. Okay, so Andrew Shapiro will be acting as tonight's recording secretary. This is where I'm going to diverge from the agenda a little bit. Andrew, sorry, I didn't really give you warning of this, but we did receive, or I did receive, 2 letters from the public, or emails, I'm sorry, both with attachments. Because of the length of the attachments, I've decided I'm not going to read them tonight, but I am going to read the short emails. The emails and their attachments have already been entered into the public record by Andrew. Those documents, the attachments and the emails themselves, can be seen on the northandoverma.gov website. If anyone in the public would like a copy of those letters and can't retrieve them, please send an email to ashapiro@northandoverma.gov, and I think Andrew will be able to email you the documents. But I wanted to read them now so that people would have a chance to look at them. People in the audience would have a chance to look at those before we move on to item number 4. So with that said, the first email I received was from Diane Huster, sent to me on Monday, August 10th, 2020 at 11:16 p.m. Jim, attached is my letter and public comments re the Stevens Estate for Tuesday's LT Advisory Committee meeting. I would have sent to all the committee members and Andrew Shapiro but none of their emails were accessible on the town's website. Please share in advance of the meeting as my comments are lengthy. If you would like to discuss, please call me 978-590-8448, Diane Huster. As requested, I did forward that email to all committee members and Andrew this morning at 8:39 a.m. And I replied to Diane that I had done so at 8:44 a.m. The second email is from Joanna Collentine. It is dated August 11th, 2020 at 8:26 a.m. Hello, Jim. I want to give you a list of concerns that I have relating to the Long-Term Planning Committee's draft recommendations for the Stevens Estate that were published for the last meeting of the LTPC. I am concerned that the recommendations being put forward omit relevant information pertinent to the Stevens Estate's current operations that I believe you and the committee members should have at your disposal. It was only after reading the results of the committee's draft findings that I realized I had more to contribute to the conversation and that there are gaps in the report findings that I could help to illustrate more clearly. As a committed employee of the town and a town resident, I find it has been difficult to balance the need for the committee to understand all the facts with my discomfort of asserting this information if they do not correspond with the town, my employer's narratives. I have tried to be and will continue to be respectful of all sides in this matter, but I believe this information should be essential reading for any town deliberations on the future of the Stevens Estate. I would like these comments to be put forward as public comment and would like you to distribute it to the committee members prior to the meeting, if this is possible. I may be reached at 978-764-3448 if you have any questions. Yours sincerely, Joanna L. Collentine, Director, the Stevens Estate. As requested, I also forwarded this email to other committee members and Andrew at 11:21 a.m. this morning, and I replied to Joanna at 11:31 that I had done so. With that said, again, I'm not going to read the attachments. They're too lengthy, and it would take up a little bit too much time, but people feel free to access those documents. And again, if you have trouble, feel free to send an email to Andrew.
Jim,
Yes, go ahead, Andrew.
sorry, do you mind if I make just a couple comments on the public comments?
No, go ahead.
So one, I just wanted to make, just for the record, so the comments that were received by the estate director, Joanna Collentine, I just want to be very clear because, she wrote it as, her position, from her position as director of the Stevens Estate. I just want to be very clear that the town is not, that her comments don't represent that of the town in terms of the town manager's office, the town accountant, myself. So I want to be very clear that those comments are coming just from her, and I'm sure she's representing the thoughts and feelings of others that she talks to, but certainly not others that are employees of the town. So I want to be very clear about that. And just very quickly to tell people at home that there is, they can access these documents by going to the Document Center link on the left-hand side of the homepage, northandoverma.gov. And then once they're scrolling down under additional documents to the link that says Stevens Estate Documents. And then once in there are multiple documents related to Stevens Estate that people might find interesting, but they can also click on a folder within that that's called Stevens Estate, SE Long-Term Committee. And there is a correspondence folder in there. Both of the letters that you just referenced, Jim, are in that correspondence folder. But as you said, folks can also reach out to me and I can send them the letters.
Great, thank you, Andrew. So at this point in time, hopefully everyone got the documents enough time to at least read them once. Are there any comments from committee members?
Well, I thought some of the points that were made by both Diane and Joanna were interesting. I'm not sure how they relate to the conversation of this committee at this point in time and where we're at. But I certainly, well, it's not the first time that we had heard the comments, but seeing them put on paper and to be entered into the record makes me question a little bit whether or not we should be discussing some of what was brought up. And given the fact that, well, I'll leave it there.
Other comments?
I have a multitude of comments, but I'll try to keep them short. I'm not sure that Diane's letter is germane to our committee. I think some of the comments are inappropriate at best. I frankly don't, to borrow a word from her, I just don't appreciate having a volunteer committee where we spend so much time, we work so hard to try to find a great solution that satisfies broadly so many people, and then in the 11th hour get a letter like this, and particularly with comment to the board chair, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and I consider him a good friend, and have worked with him in a multitude of volunteer efforts. Whether you agree with Jim LaFawn or not, he certainly puts his heart and soul into everything he does for the town of North Andover. And I just think this is inappropriate. A lot of it's arbitrary. And I would caution anyone who makes some of these suggestions in a public arena like this to really think carefully and consider the ramifications. You can't make, dunning remarks, both publicly at our meetings and then in writing, and it's just inappropriate. For now, I'll leave it at that.
Other comments?
I'm just going to jump in really quick, not add much more to that, but we've had now 3 11th hour letters submitted to this committee after beginning back in the fall and then being suspended. I'm with Joe on some of what he said, that I think some of this is the lateness and the arbitrariness of some of this is inappropriate. And I also agree that Jim, you've been a great chair of this committee, and I was a little distressed at the comments by Diane, and mentioned that to you in an email, that I thought it was inappropriate that she was laying some of this at your feet.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for that support. Just to comment myself briefly, I'm not going to comment. There are a lot of good points made in both emails and both of their attachments. But, frankly, when I read through them for the third or fourth time, there's not a lot of information provided in either one that we didn't already have. Maybe my style of not having a combined meeting was not to the liking of other people. I was invited to do so. I'm not going to say that I wasn't. And I think I did express that. I was reluctant to it. I just felt that it would diverge from, from our mission, which was to look at all models. I also felt that by meeting several times with Joanna, who is the director of the estate and who is in constant contact with her board of trustees, that we would receive particularly the data that we needed through her and through the reports that she provided for us. So that's my rationale with that. But, again, if I offended anybody by not making this as transparent or as open as possible, my apologies. It has not been easy since the COVID-19 situation erupted. So that said, Kathleen, do you have anything you'd like to add? Or Jack, would you like to add anything to comments here?
Jim, yeah, this is Jack. I was able to read through both documents twice. I guess I just feel that we did accept input from the committee, the advisory committee, and you know, several of their members were at our meetings over the course of, especially in the fall when we get started. So we did accept their input. We may not have done it in the particular fashion that they wanted, and perhaps, you know, we're guilty of that. But I do believe we did accept their input, and there seem to be some discrepancies in the amount of retained earnings between our most recent reports from the town accountant and those reported in, I believe it was Joanna's letter. So, you know, maybe some of that information wasn't up to date. I believe ours was. But I thought those discrepancies were big, and, you know, not quite poking blame at anyone as to, you know, why they've been dropping. I just think there was a difference there that maybe that there's also a difference in understanding of you know, where the operation is headed. So that's really, those are my only observations.
I'd like to just broaden one of Jack's comments. Interestingly enough, in these letters, they talk about perhaps some kind of irregularity or difference in accounting. This particular advisory committee, I mean, that's not part, in my mind, of our venue, right? This is, these budgets every year go to town meeting. If you have an issue with this particular budget or some piece of the budget, that would be most appropriately addressed on the floor at town meeting. Perhaps letters to the finance committee initially, and ask for additional breakouts. I know that the folks at Town Hall work hard to meet with different people in the public, and I certainly know that our town accountant is extremely zealous and doing a really, really good job. And our financials, obviously, for the municipality, are audited. So to suggest that there's anything wrong, if you will, or some kind of issue as it relates to town employees, I think it's incredibly inappropriate. If it were to be brought up, they've had, you know, a decade or more to bring these issues up, and most certainly they've had 3 or 4 years. If this has been a really big issue for the last couple of years that I'm not aware of until I volunteered for this committee, you know, it should have been brought up at town meeting. We just had a town meeting. Why didn't someone bring it up there? Why is it being brought to us in the 11th hour for consideration? It just doesn't make sense to me. That's all I have to say on that matter.
I'm going to agree with both of you. I admittedly, I didn't see this letter until just now. I read it on my phone, and I mean, all good points. We're certainly not basing our decision on the financials. Certainly, I'm just shocked to see this, just like you guys are. But I mean, we can all see the estate. We can all, we've reviewed the documents over and over to the point where it was redundant. We've looked at, you know, multifaceted approaches, vetted other facilities. We don't have a conflict of interest. We've put in our time. We all sat there. We said we didn't want to sell this place. We want to do what's best for the estate, what's best for the town. And the director of the facility even sat there and basically begged, I need help. It's frustrating. I'm ready to move forward and give our recommendation.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, then at this point in time.
Jim?
Yes, go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry to be the guy piping up with another comment. If I can just make one comment from like the staff perspective, just on the letters, and I'll be very, very, very brief.
Sure.
Just to get it into the public record. So one thing, you know, and Kevin keyed in on it, there was some discussion about, or maybe it was Jack that keyed in on it about discrepancies between the retained earnings that have been reported out by the town accountant and what Joanna had provided. And I can just say that that has been something that has been in dispute between the Stevens Estate Director, the trustees of Osgood Hill, and the town for a very, very long period of time. This is not a new development. They've always voiced that they felt that the town has misrepresented the estate's finances. And so I think this committee is aware of that. As far as actions the town has taken, I think that, and I can't speak for what's been done in the past under the previous administration, but certainly under this administration, I know that the town manager has made herself widely available to the trustees of Osgood Hill, to the estate director herself. And I've done the same in order to be as transparent and open in terms of providing information and feedback to them or responses to their concerns and queries. We're gonna allow the auditors of the town's finances to have FaceTime with the Osgood Hill trustees. In the past, we invited the trustees of Osgood Hill to the finance committee meeting where the auditors were present to provide their findings. At that meeting, the representatives of the trustees of Osgood Hill opted not to ask any questions of the auditors. So they had an opportunity, just like Joe said, with respect to not speaking up at town meeting. They were those individuals also did not speak up at the finance committee meeting where the auditors were present to discuss their findings. We are working with the Division of Local Services to bring them in starting in September to work with the trustees of Osgood Hill to look at the enterprise fund and how it's operated, to allow them to answer any questions that they might have or further investigate how the enterprise fund works, to allay any concerns that they might have. And then with respect to like the current model, Joanna, as you guys have mentioned, came in twice. You saw her on the tour of the estate. She provided numerous documents to you, including her 5-year plan and strategy. Stephen Foster detailed the capital needs of the estate, and we've provided retained earnings from the town accountant time and time again. So I think that there's been a lot of review of the current model, irrespective of the feelings of others on how it's been approached. And I think that's just an objective observation. And so I just wanted to enter those comments to the record.
Thanks, Andrew. Any final comments before we move on? All right, with that said, this was just a reading of emails, so we do not have to take any action on that. So the next item on the agenda is an action item. Item 3 is the acceptance of the minutes from the August 3rd, 2020 meeting. These are also available to you as an attachment to the agenda. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review them, and if so, I would entertain a motion to accept those minutes.
I move to accept the minutes for the meeting August 3rd, 2020.
Motion has been made by Jack Maben. Is there a second?
I'll
Seconded.
second.
All right, second by CJ and Kevin, so great. So we have a motion, it's been made, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Or any comments or changes to those minutes? There being none, we will vote, and again, it has to be a roll call vote, so respond by saying aye or nay. Kevin Driscoll,
Aye.
CJ Ganji,
Aye.
Jack Maben,
Aye.
Joe Pelich,
Going to abstain, Jim.
okay. Kathleen Stagno,
Aye.
and Jim LaFond will vote aye. So the motion carries 5 in favor with 1 abstention, none opposed.
Jim,
Yes,
sorry to interrupt again. I just want to let you know, I went back into my email. I noticed I do have a public comment that came in through my email. It is it's related to the conversation you were just having. So I'm happy to relay it if you'd like me to do it at this time. It's a very short, but happy you can either not do it now or whatever you
no,
want.
let's take them now rather than in case they pile up or in case, it's food for thought during later parts of the meeting. So sure, go ahead and read it.
Okay, this comment's from David Brown. I don't have an address, but he is the chair of the trustees of Osgood Hill committee. And he just mentioned that the last gentleman, so I don't know who he's referring to. I don't know what point in the conversation he had written this, suggested that the trustees have had 5 years to review discrepancies that we've found at town meeting. In reality, our board, the trustees of Osgood Hill, has members who have served 1 year at most. He's referring to himself in particular. Everyone else is newer. And so I'm pointing that out. He wanted me to make that point. And that's
Okay. Comments? All right, with that said, we're going to move into agenda item number 4, discussion and vote regarding draft recommendations and report to select board. So this certainly is the crux of the meeting. Again, this draft is the second draft or first draft amended. It was again attached to the agenda, so hopefully everyone has had a chance to look at it and how the changes have been tracked. Again, I will open it up to discussion. Jen, who did a lot of the work on this, and Joe and Andrew, Jen is not here to start the conversation. So if either Joe or Andrew would like to do that, I'd be happy to have you do it.
I only had one comment to one of the references Jen made. I think, by the way, Jen did almost all the work. Of course, Andrew helped write the initial draft, and she did a great job. As far as going before a historic board in North Andover, before anything were changed in the grounds or the facilities, I'm not sure we would need to include that. And perhaps CJ or you, Jim, could talk more about that, or Andrew, perhaps you could give color to it. My understanding generally is it's already under the Massachusetts Historic Commission's rules and regulations. And I believe that the local body would be the North Andover Historic Commission, kind of does their work for them locally, although I could be wrong. So I'm not sure we have to have that piece in there. What I wouldn't want to do is put forward a draft that perhaps is unclear as to that particular point.
All right, thanks, Joe. CJ, you're familiar with, probably more familiar with the historic preservation restriction and that committee's work. Maybe you can
Yes.
shed some light on that for us.
So, I'm just pulling up the restriction here now. So any changes to the property physically in the building or in the I believe in the land has to be approved by Mass Historic Commission because they hold an historic preservation deed restriction on the property. The North Andover Historic Commission, separate from the Mass Historic Commission, is basically the eyes and ears of the Mass Historic Commission in the town. So if anything were to be changed or need to be updated or anything like that, we would have to be informed of the changes. We'd have to be shown the plans, and then we would check with Mass Historic just to make sure that they were okay. We would get their okay on it, and then we would pass it on.
Jim, can I interrupt real quick?
Yes, go ahead, Andrew.
So, just so everyone's following along here, this is we added to the recommendation language that the agreement shall be subject to, and the first piece was the execution of a conservation restriction to be held by an appropriately identified entity for approximately, the acreage to represent a legal conservation of its watershed, blah, 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 blah. So it basically, it gives language relating to the Conservation Commission, or the conservation restriction. And then the second was that the agreement shall be subject to the managing entity seeking an approval of any alterations to the estate's buildings or grounds from the town's historical commission. And the reason that was added was, the discussion last time, CJ thought it was appropriate. I'm paraphrasing what he had said, but just basically that they come before the historical commission for any approvals of historic alterations. So I guess I would just ask CJ if he reads that language, if that language captures his intent, and if it doesn't, how it should be adjusted, and still have concerns with it.
All right, let me just pull it up. I would maybe just add to it. Let me just read it here. The managing entity seeks any alterations, exploring grounds from the Historic Commission. I would add something that says something along the lines of, you know, in accordance with the historic preservation restriction currently held by the Mass Historic Commission. And Andrew, I just sent you an email with the restriction.
Okay.
So you have that. Maybe it might be a good idea to maybe attach that to the letter when we send it, so that the selectmen have it, and they can include that in any RFPs that they put out as part of the pertinent information.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Jim, you're on mute.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Joe, just to wrap up the comments on that. I think at the last meeting, people who were there were 4 of us, basically felt that we really want to put it across to the selectmen that our recommendation is that we really need to strongly deal with both land preservation and estate historic preservation. Those are 2 things that seem to come through loud and clear at town meeting, in surveys, and all public outreach. So this was a way to strengthen our recommendation, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, for both the land and the estate, which is both land and buildings. So I think, again, from our recommendation point of view, again, how the selectmen or select board craft the RFP and what goes out is certainly up to them. But I think this, from our perspective or from us, indicates that we feel very strongly about that.
So the intention was to have oversight more from a legal body than a volunteer group within the community, for to differentiate between historic commission versus historic, I don't want to botch it, but historic society?
No, it's Mass Historical holds the preservation restriction. And again, as CJ said, North Andover Historic Commission is the eyes and ears in North Andover for that state commission. I think that,
So,
you know, when CJ was recommending it, and the reason I felt strongly about putting it in there was, if you remember, there was another building in the parking lot back there. And, you know, I was kind of fond of it. I think it was called the garden room or the plant room or something like that. And it was torn down before anybody ever had any hearings, or there was every, you know, and I know it was in bad shape, but I had always hoped that that could be resurrected. So again, I don't want to see that happen again. And I think it's important that anybody responding to an RFP understands that there is this, you know, that we are definitely preservation minded as far as these historic buildings.
Great, sounds good.
so Jim, I'd just like to draw a distinction. A lot of people think the Historic Society and the Historic Commission are connected, or they're, you know, connected organizations, or one's a part of the other. It's not. So the Historic Society is a private charity that has nothing to do with the Historic Commission. The Historic Commission is a legal board that is, you know, that is a legal entity, part of the town, part of the town government.
Thank you, CJ. That was the distinction I wanted clarity on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
moving.
I just sent Andrew a copy of the restriction. There is an addendum on it that we have from Mass Historic that basically lays out the type of changes that can be done without permission, and then the types of changes that would require permission to do. So that, again, that should be included with anything that goes to the selectmen, and then anything that goes out, I think, with an RFP.
Okay. And
Okay.
do I understand, CJ, do I understand correctly that we're going to add, at the end of item number 2, we're going to add comma, in accordance with historical preservation restriction that is filed with Mass Historical?
Correct. Yeah, I think that would just clear that up. Yeah.
Right, so basically what you're saying is they could refer to that document, and obviously there are things that they could do that would not require them filing with the town board, but other actions would.
Correct.
And that document would be the governing document.
Correct.
Yep. All right. Other comments moving on? That was on page 4. If people want to move on, any other comments?
Jim, I have a very minor input to item restrictions.
Okay.
My input is that basically the intent of all of these conservation restrictions that we have in town, and this parcel would certainly apply, the intent is, and this language should be used by us, it is to preserve the parcel in its current natural condition. That's kind of the overarching goal. So I think, as Andrew has put it on the second line, represent a legal conservation, and then insert the words of the parcel in its current natural condition, comma, including watershed land, wetland, and other protected resource areas. So I just have a little insert into that sentence.
All right. Jack, just a point of clarification, would that pose a problem for an organization who wanted to do more trail work there? Or would that
No.
be, okay,
No.
so that would be an allowed activity under, obviously they'd probably still have to go before Concom or some other town board.
Yes.
If you're clearing land, but that would be an allowed activity?
Yeah, passive recreation is, you know, when you get down into these conservation restrictions, they're very detailed, and there are prohibited activities and allowed activities. Passive recreation, such as trails, use of trails, is always an allowed activity. It's our best way of maintaining the natural features on the site.
Okay,
It would not be a conflict.
great. Thanks for the clarification. So Andrew, were you able to get that inset? Is that
Yeah,
clear to you?
I've made note of both CJ's and Jack's comments, and I've inserted them. And we can talk about how we'll, apply all these revisions when we start to, when we pass all these revisions, a vote on this.
Okay. All right. Moving along. Anybody have other comments? All right. I think I did have a few, so let me move along here. If no one has a comment in between, I'd like to move to page 12. And I think there are just a few clarifications. This is under the section high-level operating models considered. So under that section cons, so I guess I'm addressing this mostly to Andrew because you're representative of who drafted the document. The first bullet item, there's a sub-bullet, and it states, if in the future the Commonwealth's Department of Revenue does not certify the estate's enterprise fund, the town will be forced to shutter the estate and evaluate options for its future. So is that typically what would happen? They would not allow any use of the estate while those options were being evaluated?
I'm sorry, Jim. I need to find where you are, and you
Sure.
said 12. I'm not sure that aligns with what I have. So under the first, you're saying under high-level operating models considered, option 1, the town maintains operational control.
That's correct, and it's on this. Well, for me, that's on page 11, and then on the following page, under the section cons, there are pros and cons. So it's under cons.
Okay.
And the first bullet item is retained earnings have declined.
Yes, okay,
And
yep,
then there's a sub bullet.
yep.
And that's where that statement. So I just want a clarification. It says the town will be forced to shutter the estate. So is that what happens when a enterprise fund cannot function on its own? Is there a requirement that a cease and desist occurs and it would have to be shuttered?
Well, you know, I have to be honest with you, I don't know the exact mechanics of what would happen at that point in time. But what you do know is that the enterprise fund will not have been certified. And so I don't think the town would be in a position to utilize the funds within the enterprise fund at that point in time, unless there was some action taken, my assumption being by town meeting, let's say, to appropriate funding to operate the estate. So let's say there was some amount of retained earnings, let's say $20,000 was left. The vote might be to transfer the remainder of the retained earnings to the town's general fund. And then if the town saw fit to vote to operate the estate from its own operating funds, it could simply do that. But my sense is there would have to be a town action taken. I mean, I can get some more clarity on that, and I can also certainly soften the language a bit to say something to the effect of instead of
Could be shuttered.
town, I'm sorry, say again.
Maybe we could change it. Could be shuttered instead of would be shuttered.
Yeah, I was going to say instead
Potential.
of the town will be forced to shutter, I could say the town may be forced to shutter the estate and evaluate options for the future, for its future. I think the
May
point. I think
decide to shutter.
I'm sorry.
May decide to shutter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I was actually, the wording is fine with me if it were, I was just getting more at, I wanted to be perfectly clear that whether that is a requirement of failing to be a certified enterprise fund, that there's a cease and desist of all operations, or whether that is just something that would, be an action that probably would be taken.
Yeah, I can't speak to what exactly would transpire in that situation, so I don't want to misrepresent it. So I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. So another comment I had was on page, well, it's my page 13. So this is under the private, not, it's still under the high level operating models considered, but this is under the second, the private nonprofit operational control. And again, it's under cons. And it is what we added this language last week. And I just wanted to make people aware of it who weren't at that meeting. So if you would go there and basically it's the second and third bullet items. And I think it's important because it does, if this is accurate information, and I believe it is, then this is obviously going to have a impact on the types of organizations that may submit a proposal. It's going to be important to in the future, I believe.
Jim, did you have any comment about how the edits appeared or the language used? And did you want to adjust anything, or do you feel like it
No,
represents what we
I
discussed?
I just wanted to point that out. I do have a little bit there, and also under the private for-profit operational control, also under cons, we added the similar language. The one caveat, and I guess it'll just stand on its own, is that we're supposed to be a long-term advisory committee, and I know I've expressed this opinion to you, Andrew, before. And a con, it certainly is a con, the COVID-19 situation, but hopefully it's a short-lived con. And again, I just wonder how that is going to impact organizations, or whether it will impact organizations, and whether or not they would submit a proposal. But again, it certainly is a con in all the models right now. So I just want to bring that to everybody's attention. I have no desire to change the wording. And that wraps up my comments in general. So if there are or specific comments, anybody else with other specific comments?
I think this is well done. Good job, guys. Good summation.
Yeah, very good job by the drafters. All right, so the million-dollar question is, where do we go from here? Obviously, we've talked about some tweaking tonight, but not much substantive. So I guess we could take a vote if people feel they want to move in that direction, and we could summarize the changes that we're making in the motion, or we could have the drafters incorporate those changes and come back with a final draft for voting at a future meeting. So I will leave that in your capable hands as to how you want to proceed.
Jim, this is Andrew. Just one comment. So the original motion to draft the recommendation included the stipulation that the recommendation be delivered to the Board of Selectmen by August 15th. So that's just
Correct.
another consideration that the board has to, another issue that the board has to take into consideration as to whether and how they want to do this. I mean, one suggestion I could make is just that someone could make a motion to approve the approve the draft. Excuse me. Let me just try this again. A motion to approve the recommendations as drafted with the amendments discussed, subject to a final review by the committee's chair. And I just mentioned that last piece because what my intent would be is just incorporate the edits discussed here. And then Jim, I would pass it to you to do a final read through to make sure they represented what you felt was the conversation that we had here tonight that the edits made. And then if you were fine with it, then you would then, or I could, with your permission, transfer it to the board.
All right. So committee members, you've heard the options. So, but we don't move on here unless there's further discussion or unless there's a motion.
Well, I move that we adopt the draft recommendations and report to select board as drafted and amended based on final review by the committee chair.
Seconded.
Okay, so the motion has been moved by Jack Mabin and has been seconded by CJ Ganji. So now final discussion, comments?
Will
Question?
the final draft be sent out as soon as you review it, Jim?
You mean to the committee members?
Yeah, just to review, just in case.
I would be happy to do so.
I just want to
Yep.
reread, since I didn't get to go through all of the public, the letter and read it quiet. I just got home from work. I just want to double check, make sure I have everything, everything reviewed.
Oh, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have a problem with that. Obviously, I think you all know me well enough that I would only make changes if I thought that any of the comments from other committee members, were something that I missed or something that we missed or something important. I don't think it's not after the vote. It would not be incumbent upon us to make any substantive changes. It would just be to make sure that we are issuing the recommendation, pursuant to our conversations and our vote.
Totally
I-
trust you, Jim, and I think you've done a phenomenal job. I just want to, it's pure due diligence at this point. I made a comment earlier that I didn't have a chance to read that letter completely. Sorry,
Yep.
my 3-year-old's yelling in the background, but I just want to make
Not a
sure
problem.
I get it read.
Yep, that's fine. And again, I have no problem. So Andrew would compile the changes, send them to me, and if I agree, I don't think I will have any changes, but I'll send it out to everybody. And if there are any glaring errors that we've made, then you could comment. But otherwise, and I will ask everyone to get that done within the day, because again, unless we vote to extend our own deadline, we need to get this to the selectmen by the 15th.
So Jim, that process that you just described is a little problematic in terms of complying with open meeting law. So being able to, what I'm trying to say is, I can't have a process whereby the committee would, as a whole, review the draft outside of the confines of a public meeting and give an approval of it. So I guess what I'm saying is either the committee needs to approve the recommendation document tonight, subject to the addition of the amendments that we discussed, and they could give you they can also add to that a final review sort of caveat to you, Jim, to make sure that you, as the committee's sort of representative, make sure that the right edits got made in the way that were discussed tonight. But with all due respect to Kathleen, I just don't think we can then shoot it back out to everybody and have everybody chime in, yay or nay, on the final draft. The only way to do that would be to come back to another committee meeting to say, okay, these additions have been that the revisions made, and everyone's had a chance to further review other comments that have been provided to the committee, and you're voting now. So it's kind of an either or scenario.
All right. Well, I stand corrected then. Thank you very much, Andrew. I don't want to make any mistakes like that. So it's before the committee again. The motion's been moved and seconded. This would be the time when we, amend the motion to come back to another meeting, or we vote tonight. I guess there's no middle ground.
I apologize. I get disconnected for about 1 minute or so, and apparently I missed the motion and had to log back in. The motion on the floor is?
The motion has been moved and seconded to adopt the recommendations with amendments made this evening, pursuant to final compilation by Andrew and final review by the committee chair, myself.
I like that motion. So that's on the table?
That is on the table.
And there's a second?
There is. So Kathleen, does that,
I'm good to go. I'm good to go.
Okay. Other comments, final comments? All right, so then the question is being called. Again, the voting has to be done by roll call. So again, the motion is to adopt a recommendation as written with amendments as made this evening, to be compiled by Andrew Shapiro and to be final reviewed by Jim LaFond. And that motion has been made by Jack and seconded by CJ. If you are in favor, please respond by saying aye or yes. Kevin Driscoll?
Aye.
CJ Ganji?
Aye.
Jack Maben?
Aye.
Joe Pelich?
Aye.
Kathleen Stagno?
Aye.
And the chair, Jim LaFond, votes aye as well. The motion carries 6 in favor, none opposed.
Jim,
So it's a unanimous vote.
I have I know this is coming after you just made this vote, but I do have 2 quick public comments if you want to take them at this point, and that's totally up to you as to whether you're not.
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. So they're all by Gene Irwin in 3 separate emails to me. 64 Colgate Drive, and Gene is also a member of the Osgood Hill Trustees. He asked me may I ask why everyone is not listening to public comment versus writing a doc? And I'm a little bit, I don't really understand the comment. I'm just giving some flavor to this because we did, just for the record, we did hear public comment. You all received the 2 letters, one from Joanna Collantine, one is from Diane Huster, and those comments were discussed. So we did take public comment. The second comment she makes is, I am very concerned about the lack of willingness to meet with the Osgood Hill Committee. I don't understand the reasoning. Our missions come aligned. How could they not? Why are you willing to consider a plan? Why are you unwilling to consider a plan we created that could suit your objectives? And another comment by Jean, why is the investigation of $1.6 million by DOR not being pursued? And I can answer that comment. Jim, you'd allow me?
Yeah, please do. I didn't know there was an investigation.
Well, there was reference to this is something that the Osgood Hill trustees have brought up in the past, and it was referenced in, I believe, Diane Huster's email about not understanding where $1.6 million approximately had been transferred out of the Stevens estate account. And this was an observation that the Osgood Hill trustees had made. So there's a detailed memo, bank statements provided by the town accountant that was sent directly to the Osgood Hill trustees. I'm happy to send that to this committee. If you guys want to see it, I'll do that. And I'll also put it in the correspondence folder of the Stevens Estate Long-Term Advisory Committee, so it's into the public record. And essentially, it's just it's not really worth getting into detail, in my opinion, on this in this meeting. But it essentially explains how the town organizes its various accounts and how money comes in and out of it. And so basically, there's a very salient reason that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, Andrew, but yeah, I mean, I think I'm aware of that, and I think most of our committee members are aware of that. But one thing that took me a little aback, is there a Department of Revenue investigation?
No. So, well, yes and no. So, the another thing as a result of the $1.6 million issue that I just referenced, the trustees of Osgood Hill requested that the town undertake a forensic audit. The town explained in response that we have third-party auditors, and we've discussed that ad nauseum, that we do have third-party auditors that look at this and not found any wrongdoing in the accounting of the enterprise fund. That said, an idea that was brought up and broached was engaging the Department of Local Services, which is a division, I believe, of DOR, to come in and speak with the trustees of Osgood Hill about the accounting methods of the town and the enterprise fund, and then to investigate it further, going back 5 years, to see if, in fact, any wrongdoing had occurred. And the town is willing to do that, and it's already engaged DLS, Division of Local Services, to undertake that process. And they're going to begin that process in September and engage directly with the trustees of Osgood Hill. So in response directly to Ms. Irwin's comments, that process is still going to happen as far as I know. And so there's no intent to shut down that process or divert from that process. So that's still going to happen.
I have a question I hate to even ask. I don't understand the allegation. Is there some allegation of misappropriation, as in theft, or is this simply an allegation that somehow the town is not following generally accepted accounting principles or governmental accounting principles as adopted by municipalities? It doesn't. I guess the choice of words doesn't sit well with me. It's something I haven't read about. It's something that was never brought up that I am aware of at a town meeting. I've never heard anything or read any letter that went to a finance committee. I'm just perplexed, to be quite honest.
Yeah, Joe, good point. And I have not. I don't want to characterize any one of the trustees of Osgood Hill's intent behind the inquiry. What I will do, since it's germane to tonight's meeting, I'll just read directly from Ms. Huster's email, or excuse me, the letter she provided. There's a section of it that's called Financial Anomalies. It's a very short piece. I'll just quickly read it. This is what she said. Trustees have identified some anomalies, as they label them. Foremost are transfers of $1.6 million from the Stevens Estate checking account during an approximately 2-year period. Apparently, Town Hall has come back to the trustees with two different answers. No official communication giving the answer has been discussed at a trustee meeting that I am aware of. It remains the $1.6 million question. Why is the answer not forthcoming with the town manager's endorsement? And so my response to that is, A, there is no such thing as a Stevens Estate checking account. And that information is detailed in a response by the town accountant. There's various accounts that the town uses to make payments and draw from. And there's not one account dedicated to the Stevens Estate. Town Hall has provided official statement on the answer having to do with how the town utilizes these accounts. So there is an answer. It may not be satisfactory to the trustees of Osgood Hill, but responses to this have been provided. In addition to everything that I've mentioned earlier, which was making the auditors available to the trustees of Osgood Hill and undergoing the DLS interaction, if you will, or investigation of the finances going on. So there's a complete, open, and transparent willingness on the town's part to address any such concern. But you're right, Joe. I haven't heard it brought up at the past town meeting.
Other final comments? There being none, we're going to move back into.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Yeah. Another comment?
Yeah, I got another one.
Sure.
Dave Brown, chair of the Osgood Hill Trustees, 35 Old Summit Road. He says, my understanding is that it's not an allegation of wrongdoing. It's a concern about whether or not the retained earnings account is active, i.e. we may have more retained earnings than it seems we do. So that's another way of describing it from the chair of the Osgood Hill group.
So essentially, it sounds like it's an allocation issue. So their issue is how this has been accounted for, how revenue in, expense out has been accounted for, and ultimately what income flowed down and was kept as retained earnings. Okay.
Yeah. Although Ms. Huster's description of it seems to describe it a little differently. Again, she calls it a financial anomaly, a transfer of 1.6 million from the account during a two-year period of time. So there's kind of an open-ended aspect to that piece of her respondents, where it kind of implies that maybe it was done improperly, and why doesn't the Stevens Estate have access to that money?
So the bottom line though is any revenue that came out in expense allocation ends up in the general budget anyway. And we're all, anyone who's eligible to vote can go to town meeting and address this issue at either the approval of the budget at the finance committee level or generally the overall approval at town meeting, correct?
You're right.
I've never heard an issue ever.
That's a good point.
I've been to countless town meetings. I can't remember how many. Jim, you've probably been to all of them.
I have.
Can I ask a quick question? I don't have the meetings in front of me right now, but didn't we discuss at one point months ago the amount of money that was put into the Stevens Estate out of the general fund and never repaid back? Do you know what that sum of money was? I can't recall what year it was. I know we discussed it previously.
We did discuss that. If you bear with me a minute, I can look.
I think it's important to note, in the same vein that Joe just stated, the allocation of funds is dispersed differently each year, and Stevens Estate has had its share.
Yeah. Bear with me here. I'm having a hard time finding that right this second.
I guess the point is made that we have, the town has put a significant amount of time and money and energy, and the need for capital improvements is great to this day.
How long has that committee existed? And how many decades have they had an opportunity to take the Stevens estate and make it profitable and reserve capital so that they could do improvements and run programs for the community? Just
They've been in existence since 1997, so since then. And I would also add that I did find the document that Kathleen was referring to. So in FY 2009, 2010, and 2011, the town made transfers from its general fund to the Stevens Estate Enterprise Fund, totaling over that period of time $332,675.
I think that, and I've been struggling a little bit with this, so I'll put this out there and see what people think. The biggest concern from people who are calling in now, and people who have been very passionately involved with the Stevens estate, some of them for a short period of time, but many for a long period of time, seems to be, that they want to see their model work, and I understand that. I think most of you on the committee know that originally my desire was the same thing. I think the town should always retain ownership, which we are accomplishing, and I thought that we could run it. But again, I think that the evidence proves it, and of course the advisory committee at Osgood Hill still will have their opportunity to petition with the selectmen. This is where our recommendation is going. The selectmen can do with it what they would like. There are a lot of impediments to the town running the Stevens estate. I think every one of them can be overcome. I really do. I mean, that's my personal belief. But as I've spoken with some of you, we have 25 years basically where we've dug a hole. We've got $15 million in deferred maintenance and renovations there that we haven't been able to grapple with whatever reason. We have a lot of programming wishes, and we've done a lot of great things. I think Joanna has done a terrific job. I think the trustees up there have done a terrific job. In my opinion, and the reason that swayed me is I just don't think that we've been able to pull it together. I mean, I would love to say differently, but I've been swayed. I believe that a private organization that would, a nonprofit organization that may be able to go in a different direction and get a lot of things done that need to get done there while we still retain ownership and while we still benefit from a lot of the new programming that might be developed. I think that that's where I am. I know that people on that board and others feel slighted. I've certainly heard from a lot of people that way. But again, we were charged with doing what we think is best for the Stevens estate and for the town. And I think that that is how we came to this recommendation. I don't know what others feel that we should go further in explaining ourselves, but if someone does, possibly we could draft a document of an explanation as to why what we think the limitations are in the current model. I personally don't think it's necessary. I think they're obvious, but I'm happy to listen to input.
No, I think that's well said, Jim. I don't think we need to write anything. You just set it into the record, so it's there.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
100%.
Same here.
All right.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Well, just a few things then. Item 5, is there anything under new business that I missed? New business that was brought to the attention of any other committee member or to you, Andrew? Obviously that was.
Can you say one more time, Jim? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. I took item 5 basically out of order by reading the emails we received early in the meeting. What I'm asking now, is there any other new business that should be brought to my attention, either from you, Andrew, or from any other committee member?
I have another public comment.
Okay.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, I'll take the final public comment. I think after this, I'm going to cut it off, Andrew.
Okay, thank you. So this will be the final public comment. It's This is again from Gene Irwin. How can you know if a fund is losing or profitable if it's not tracked separately? Also, per enterprise rules, it must be tracked separately. 2017 was a moratorium that affected 1998. I think she's saying 2017 was a more. I think she means to say 2017 was a moratorium that affected 2018. Wasn't a quorum until December 2019. If you accepted one of our invitations to meet, you would be aware of all situations. $10 million of capital improvements can be allocated over many years. So, those are the comments.
All right, thank you. So there being no other new business, item 6 is discussion and vote on future meetings, but I'm actually not sure we need to vote on another meeting at this time. But Andrew, as a, will there likely be issues that we need to that we need to address? And should we put a meeting date out there just so that it's posted and then cancel the meeting, or will it be easy to resurrect and go forward with the meeting if we need one in the future?
It's not a problem to just, the voting on the meeting thing, on the meeting date, it's a bit of a formality. So it's not, we can set another meeting in the future if need be, and it doesn't have to be based on a vote taken for a certain date.
Okay.
So
as long as we post it properly and give proper notice, we're all set.
That's right.
So at this point in time, unless someone really insists, I'm not going to push item number 6 for a future meeting date. So with that said, unless there are final comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank
Second,
you, Joe. I'm sorry, who's Kevin second?
Kevin.
All right, there is a motion on the table made by Joe and Joe Pelich, seconded by Kevin Driscoll to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. And again, this will be by roll call. So Kevin Driscoll,
Aye.
CJ Ganji,
Aye.
Jack Maben,
Aye.
Joe Pelich,
Aye.
Kathleen Stagno.
Aye, and I've read all the letters.
Okay, great. And Jim LaFond also votes aye. The motion to adjourn is approved, 6 in favor, none opposed. And again, one parting comment. Thank you very much all for your participation and input. Andrew, you as well, more than most. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Jim, thank you for your exceptional job. I'm glad you were
Jim,
chair.
great job.
Jim, thank you very much. Absolutely
All right.
correct.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
great job, Jim.
Yep, we'll all
Great
be in
job.
touch, I'm sure. And Andrew, let me know when that draft is finalized.
Yep, I'll be in touch. Thank you all. And Cam, we're off.